there. You lose the blanket on top of this brand new brain, as it were, then you're going to get an asymmetric response, and that's exactly what's happened. One side's been hit harder than the other. Paradoxically, because of the damage eventually results in increasing fear and loss of senses. That's a very frightening process. And a separation from a single sentient experience, a split, so you end up with almost two beings in there. And the one that's most frightened, the psychological drive, the fear, it ends up taking control. And that's augmented by the fact it's so damaged it doesn't actually need optimum fuels. I mean, you mentioned people behaving as if diet doesn't make much difference. Actually doesn't make a lot of difference to the left hemisphere because its structural design is so damaged. It doesn't matter too much what you build it from anymore. However, the relic function, the relic architecture in the right hemisphere, very sensitive still. So that's where there's actually scope to make a big difference by rebuilding. First of all, you can reaccess the architecture that is there, and then the idea is to prevent all of this by putting the hormonal environment back in place that would grow a functioning neural system. You wouldn't need any techniques then. There wouldn't be any problems to solve. It would just work.
There's a sense when reading your book that the left hemisphere gets bastardized, or it becomes a problematic part of our human experience, and do you think that's this is maybe a few people's readings? It could be interpreted that way, that you belittle the left hemisphere. Can you comment on that? Do you think it's should be seen in that way? Is that what you mean when you say that the left hemisphere and its dominance is so responsible to our consciousness crisis?
Yeah, basically I think that's correct, although I understand how it can be perceived. I'm sort of trapped using reductionist language to explain the concept.
Yes. So the book really is talking about, in a large way, I love the fact that you say the brain was originally not separated in the left and right sense that we see now. When we talk about the left being kind of logical and linear, and the right being creative, expanded, and thinking in spontaneous fashion, creatively and pragmatically, etc. What is it when you speak about the left being in the dark?
That really refers to, there's several things. Basically, the neurological structure of the left at a cellular microarchitectural level is more degenerate in the left hemisphere, much more than the right. And that directly equates, it's not one and the same thing, but directly equates to its perceptual ability, its cognitive ability. So the neurological structure directly correlates to our sense of self, our ability to see the world, our intelligence and so on. And it's, all the evidence suggests it's, for reasons that can be explained, to do with genetic asymmetry. It's been hit hardest by this whole process I've discussed. And it's psychologically, it's perceptually dominant. And yet it's less able. So it's kind of, and it's so less able, it's unaware of its limits, it's unaware that it's actually dysfunctional. So it's kind of in the dark of its own dysfunction. It's looking out in the world thinking it's great, thinking it's advanced, looking at all these problems everywhere, not realizing it's actually creating them, and tending to view the right hemisphere's contributions with some suspicion, partly because it doesn't have the capacity to understand or experience at the same level. So it's inevitably suspicious. It's beyond its comprehension. It's not bloody minded. It's not that it could do it and won't. It just cannot. It can't see. It can't see in colour. It sees in black and white metaphorically. But the whole world's in colour. Well, it's trapped there. It doesn't know any. It doesn't know any better.
So it's kind of like as due to the cognitive severance between the hemispheres and the way they communicate, we've almost created a different dialect over the years. That the dialect has become more obscure and less comprehensible. Whereas obviously when the hemispheres were originally much more of a united package, it was a common language that they could both utilise and work with. So the dialect has been getting increasingly less comprehensible, and between them. Would you say that's a good definition? Because I heard you say, or someone said that the left is bullying the right.
Yeah, it was part of one of the slides, I think. Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a. It's almost unfortunate that there are the two hemispheres, because it gives rise to the physical separation, and I think there's some truth in that because of the genetic asymmetry, one side being more damaged than the other.
Yes.
But I think they were effectively a single unit. It just happened to be in two halves, but functionally they were the same. Perceptually they were the same. Single sense of self. And yeah, with this asymmetric damage, one side getting hit harder than the other, then their very sense of selves have sort of differentiated. You've ended up with two senses emerging, two separate sense of selves, two separate realities, and the distance between them has increased rapidly. And then paradoxically, the least able side has taken charge and is blithely unaware of its dysfunction, or it's finally got to that state, which is, I mean, mental ill health, when you know you've got a problem, is one thing. When you're so seriously ill you have no idea you've got a problem, that's pretty bad. You know, that's when things are really bad, and that's the left hemisphere now. It actually thinks it's highly advanced and specialised, and it looks at the data and goes, "Yeah, aren't I clever?" Well, look at the world around us. There's something wrong.
And it's minimised, at least half of the information it's been getting.
Well, I would say a lot more than half. Its capacity isn't for half the information, it's probably for 1% of the information.
Sure.
Where the real genius lies, and I mean, people talk about the technological advancements, 99% of people couldn't build or invent or design the most basic technology. You get a few people with a different balance between the hemispheres will come up with some astounding stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And then 99% of other people following the instructions will construct it and go, aren't we clever? Most of us can press the on-off switch. We couldn't build an old video recorder, let alone a spaceship or something. We're not that clever at all.
That's totally fascinating, because in that sense, actually, the right brain has been propping up the rest of humanity for all these years under the context that's been reappropriated in a very misleading way by the left-brained culture. Oh, as you said, aren't we clever? Well, it's predominantly that right-brain genius over there that created, the internet, for example, and the will, and but that gives it a brand new twist on the whole situation. I was reading your book, and if I was to have one criticism, it would be the fact that it seems to be the left brain is reproached or minimised and maybe enemised. This is a part of our biochemistry is wrong almost. There's that sense, and is that kind of the thrust you want to get across, or in what sense is a left brain just not in harmony with its own self?
I mean that is something I hear from time to time, and it's already part of the left-right culture anyway. The idea they need to be balanced in harmony and so on. I totally understand that. It's very much a left-brain concept, I think, based on the data. I think it comes down to as simple as this: either it's structurally severely damaged or it's not. If it is, it's not about blame, it's not about demonising it, it's just a diagnosis of what's happened.
Sure.
And if you poke yourself in the eye hard enough and you damage the lens and you can't see anymore, it's pointless pretending it's not damaged. You get the damn thing fixed or something. You don't put a patch on your good eye and wander around with your half blind eye and go, everything's fine, fall off a cliff.
Sure.
And that's kind of what we're doing.
Yes, absolutely. So where do you see, I know we've spoken a little bit about the future, but in regards to the current lens we have, we're talking about the suppression of the right and severe biochemical dysfunction in the left. Where are we heading economically and politically? Where are we heading as a society? We know where we're heading if we continue along this path. What's likely to occur as we bring in, more of the brain tonics, more of the archaic dietary substances into our lives? Are we expecting a big shift? This is what I'm saying, or is it going to be
with diet and various supplements and so on? Those things will help, but on their own they won't bring about much of a shift. They'll potentiate a shift. They'll fuel the right hemisphere more. But as long as it's dormant, as long as the left hemisphere is in charge, it won't make an awful lot of difference. We basically ended up with the left hemisphere structure is regressing. It's primitive. It's damaged. It's primitive, and you just need to look around. There's overwhelming evidence. We're very, or as a species now, very aggressive. We spend most of our best technology and resources go into designing the insights and the genius come from the right hemisphere, then we transform it into phenomenal killing machines.
Yeah, sure.
That's where we've been heading. Diet and the sort of chemistry that's gone missing will help alleviate that situation, only if we can put it hand in hand with shifting the balance, moving out of the damaged hemisphere and more to the right hemisphere for now. But I don't want to be misinterpreted as saying this is all about the left and right brain. It's actually, of course, I use that language a lot. It is really about repairing the left hemisphere, and so we have a whole brain working again. That's really what we want. But it's not simply about bringing them into balance. It's not about using, if you've got a nearly blind eye and a fully functioning eye, it wouldn't be about using them both in balance.